This is an NBC News special report. Here's Chris Jansing.
Good day, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news. A verdict has been reached in the trial of the man known as El Chapo, Joaquin Guzman, for years the most powerful and notorious leader of the Sinaloa drug cartel. Guzman, who is 61, has been on trial in New York City under heavy security since mid-November after being extradited from Mexico in 2017. Guzman was captured by Mexican authorities in a gun battle just over 3 years ago after having twice dramatically escaped from Mexican prisons. NBC's Rahema Ellis is at the courthouse in Brooklyn, New York. Rahema, what's the verdict?
The verdict is guilty on all 10 counts that he was being tried against. And it's most significant, count number 1, which is engaging in contumacious criminal enterprise. He was found guilty on that. And this is the one that the prosecutors were really hoping for because it's most significant. Guilty verdict on this means that he could face life in prison with no possibility of parole in a maximum security federal prison. Once again, guilty on all 10 counts. And the jury of 8 women and 4 men, they had been deliberating for several days. This is the 6th day in their 2nd week of deliberation in this trial that had gone on for more than 3 months in a case that federal authorities had been looking into for over a decade. And now they have what they had been hoping for, this guilty verdict on all 10 counts.
Rahema, thank you. Let me bring in our justice correspondent, Pete Williams in Washington. It was quite a startling trial. Stories of murder, of the rape of little girls, of slush funds essentially to pay off government officials. This is somebody who was once on the Forbes billionaires list. How significant is this prosecution and this guilty verdict?
Well, it's huge for a couple of reasons. One is just from the criminal justice perspective. The jury actually had an 8-page ballot to fill out. Not only the 10 counts, but subpoints within the counts that will lead to how big his sentence is. Rahema pointed out that he faces a maximum of life in prison. That's because when the Mexican authorities agreed to extradite him to the U.S., the U.S. said they would not try him with any capital counts that could lead to the death penalty, even though there was ample evidence, the prosecutor said, that he had directed a large number of killings in Mexico of potential threats. Everything about this trial was larger than life, including how the Mexican authorities finally tracked him down. It was after the actor Brad Pitt went down to interview him. The communications that set up that interview, Sean Penn rather, helped lead the authorities to where he was hiding out. And then, of course, at the very last minute, in the closing minutes, literally, of the Obama administration, he was flown to the U.S. under heavy security. The Mexican authorities, eager to do that before President Trump took office as a sort of gift to the Obama administration for years of cooperation in tracking him down. So it's symbolically important as a matter of justice. It's symbolically important, too, to show that the U.S. will track these drug lords. Unfortunately, of course, it doesn't put much of a dent in the flow of drugs, the relentless flow of drugs from Mexico into the U.S., because others simply pick up where he left off.
So what happens now, Pete? What's likely, where's he likely to go? This is a trial with the kind of security we have rarely seen anywhere.
Right, the kind of trial the kind of security you would ordinarily see in a terrorism trial. For example, the jurors have been sequestered. The names of them have not been made public. So all sorts of precautions taken because of the history that he has here. But he will be sentenced, and these plus factors that the jury had to decide on, the quantity of drugs he was responsible for marketing into the U.S., smuggling in here, the amount of money involved, all of that will go into the size of his sentence. But I think it's fair prediction. He's 61. He's going to spend the rest of his life in a U.S. prison.
Pete Williams, thank you for that. So drug kingpin Joaquin Guzman, El Chapo, again, found guilty on all counts, likely to spend the rest of his life in a maximum security federal prison with no chance of parole. We will be following developments in this story throughout the day, and we'll have complete details tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. For now, I'm Chris Jansing, NBC News, New York.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.